Do you know what makes someone over 70 look older, more tired, and more miserable than their peers? It's not illness, it's not money, it's the invisible burdens that they refuse to let go of. Eleanor, a 74-year-old woman from Florida, once said something I can never forget. "I have everything, a house, a pension, obedient children, and grandchildren. But inside, it feels like I'm carrying a backpack full of rocks that no one else can see." Perhaps you've felt this way too. A fatigue without explanation. A heaviness you can't put into words. And today, I want to ask you a very simple question, but also a very honest one. What is holding you back? Your 70s aren't the end. They're an opportunity to look back and selectively choose what truly deserves to stay in your life. Not just old clothes or unused items, but outdated beliefs, lingering emotions, and relationships that make you forget your own worth. Believe me, it's time for you to choose what stays and what needs to go. So the rest of your life isn't just about living, but living light, relaxed, and true to who you really are. If you're seeking real peace in your later years, stay with this video until the end. And if you're still watching, comment yes to let me know you're ready for a new chapter. Let's begin. Together, we'll discard 5 things that are silently stealing your happiness, little by little. From a young age, we're taught, to be loved, we must be obedient. To be accepted, we must be like everyone else. And to be recognized, we must try to please those around us. So we grow up in a world where our self-worth seems to depend on the opinions of others. An opinion that's always changing, always leaves something lacking, always demanding that we try a little harder. George, a 76-year-old man I once met at a community meeting, had lived nearly his entire life this way. He was a kind man, always ready to help neighbors, take care of grandchildren, attend every meeting, and nod in agreement with all suggestions, even when he was so tired he just wanted to rest. When I asked him, "Why don't you refuse when you clearly don't want to do something?" he just smiled and replied casually, "Because if I don't, people will be upset. And I don't want anyone to be upset because of me." Sounds noble, right? But that desire to not upset anyone has cost him his peace of mind, little by little. The truth is, at this age, trying to gain others' acceptance is no longer kindness. It's a burden, an invisible burden, heavier than any luggage. It makes you constantly guess what others think, worry about disappointing someone, and most importantly, it makes you live inauthentically. Have you ever stayed silent when you wanted to speak? Have you ever reluctantly nodded when you wanted to shake your head? Have you ever smiled just to avoid upsetting anyone? If so, you're not alone, but you deserve to be freed from that. You've spent decades living for others. Now, when time is more precious than ever, it's time for you to live for yourself. And no, that's not selfish. On the contrary, it's the bravest thing an adult can do, to respect yourself. You don't need to be accepted by everyone. You don't need to agree with others to be loved. You don't need to live up to expectations to feel fulfilled. When you let go of the need for acceptance, something miraculous happens. You begin to attract the right people who align with your true energy. People who don't need you to try, to strain, to do anything. They accept you just as you are. And only then do you truly become free. If you've made it this far, ask yourself, am I living true to myself? And if the answer is no, remember this. You have the right to change that, starting today. Not with a grand gesture, but simply by saying no to what exhausts you, by choosing rest instead of pleasing others, by placing your hand on your chest, taking a deep breath and reminding yourself, I don't need to be accepted. I just need to be me. A few months ago, I met Margaret, an 81-year-old woman with quiet eyes and a soft smile like the morning breeze. As we sat together one autumn afternoon, she shared with me the things she wished she had done differently in life. I wish I had apologized to my mother sooner. I wish I hadn't pushed my husband away because of things I didn't understand when I was younger. I wish I had lived more lightly. Her story left me speechless. Not because of the sadness in her words, but because I realized regret is something most of us carry with us, like an invisible bag, but always heavy. There are nights when you lie down thinking you'll sleep well, but then the old images return. A quarrel, a missed opportunity, a loved one who's gone. You wonder, what if I could go back? What if I had done things differently? But do you know something? The past can't be fixed, but you can choose how you live with it. Regret is a kind of punishment we inflict on ourselves. It doesn't change anything. It only makes the present more bleak. And the saddest thing is, many people are losing their remaining days just to relive a past they can never touch. But if you're still listening, I have good news. You don't have to live like that anymore. You can forgive yourself, not because you didn't make mistakes, but because you deserve to be free. You can learn from the past and then choose to let go. Imagine carrying a backpack full of rocks for many years. It makes your shoulders ache, your back bend, and your legs unable to take you far. Now, you can put it down. Right now. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. Forgiveness is saying, I did the best I could at that time. And today, I choose not to let that define the rest of my life. You can't go back and rewrite the past, but you can write a beautiful ending to your life story. If you've ever carried regret, big or small, I want you to do this. Leave a comment below the video and write, I'm learning to forgive. Writing it down is the first step to freeing your mind from what has passed. And if you resonate with what I've just shared, hit like on this video, not for me, but for yourself. It's a nod to yourself. I deserve peace. Life doesn't wait for anyone, you know. So don't let the past take away your today. Because the truth is, today, whether you're in your 70s, 80s, or older, is still a brand new day to start. I once met Walter, a 78-year-old man who lived in a small apartment in suburban Michigan. At first, he seemed like most elderly people, quiet, gentle, but after just a few stories, he said something I'll never forget. I live alone, but I'm at peace. I wasn't alone before, but I always felt hurt. It turns out, for 40 years, he maintained a friendship with a college friend, someone who was always judgmental, critical, and made him feel small every time they talked. But out of fear of seeming ungrateful, out of long history, he kept that relationship, like holding on to a wound that would never heal. Walter wasn't the only one. Many people over 70 are still carrying toxic relationships just because they think, I'm used to it, I have an obligation, or worse, I don't deserve anything better. But do you know? No one at all, deserves your presence if they only know how to hurt you. A true relationship is one where you can be yourself, be heard, and be respected. It's not a place where you have to shrink to fit others' expectations. It's not a place where you feel drained every time you talk. It's not a place where you always ask yourself, did I do something wrong? When we're younger, we tend to overlook the harm because we think we're strong. But in later years, the soul becomes more sensitive, and the value of peace becomes clearer than ever. You don't have time to live in relationships that don't nourish your soul anymore. Ask yourself, do I feel supported or drained of energy after meeting this person? Do they listen to me or always talk to silence me? Do they make me feel worthy or do they make me always prove myself? If the answer is negative, it's time to free yourself. Letting go doesn't mean resenting or avoiding. Letting go is an act of self-respect. It's when you say, I choose peace, not because I'm selfish, but because I've endured enough. And you're not alone in making that decision. If you've ever been or are in a relationship that hurts you, share your feelings in the comments. Just write, I'm learning to let go. Sometimes, a small phrase is enough to start a healing journey. And if what I've said today resonates with you, hit like and share this video so others can realize peace is a right we all deserve at any age. Your 70s aren't about enduring. They're about choosing. Choose what lifts you up and distance yourself from what pulls you down. I remember an afternoon chatting with Mrs. Helen, 81 years old, with a slender figure and eyes as bright as early winter sunshine. She had been a philosophy teacher. When I asked her if she feared death, she smiled and answered, I'm not afraid of death. I'm only afraid of one thing, not having loved fully. Her words left me speechless. In fact, the fear of death is a very human thing. We avoid mentioning it. We don't want to hear about it. We don't want to see it, as if by not thinking about it, it won't come. But after the age of 70, death is no longer a distant concept. It shows up in the photographs as friends slowly pass away, in the empty chairs no longer occupied, in the health checkups that leave you waiting anxiously for results. And then, that fear subtly creeps into every moment, making you withdraw, afraid to start something new, afraid to let go of old habits, afraid to love again. But do you know what's even more frightening than death? It's living without truly living. The fear of death doesn't stop it from coming. On the contrary, it robs you of the present, the only thing you truly have. So, instead of letting that fear control you, let it remind you to live each day to the fullest. When you know you won't live forever, you'll appreciate every morning when you can open your eyes, every warm cup of tea in your hand, every hug, every glance, every laugh shared with those you love. Death shouldn't be a dark shadow, but a friend reminding us to live meaningfully. I want you to think differently for a moment. No one knows how much time they have left, but you can choose how to spend that time. You can write a letter you've never sent, call someone you haven't spoken to in a long time, laugh out loud at something small, start a new habit, no matter how small, and love yourself as though today is the first day you were born. If you're still watching, leave a comment. I will live today fully. That's not just a promise to me, it's a promise to yourself. And if this video resonates with you, share it with a friend, a loved one. Maybe they also need to hear that life is still beautiful, even though we don't know how long it will last. Death doesn't take away life. It only reminds us how precious life really is. I once met Mr. Walter, 79 years old, living alone in a small apartment in downtown Chicago. When I asked him if there was anything he would like to change about his current life, he smiled sadly. I'm old now. What's the point of changing? That answer wasn't surprising. Many people over 70 carry this persistent belief that their time has passed. There's no opportunity for change anymore. Everything is already set in stone. But do you know what's the saddest thing? It's not that we grow old. It's that we begin to believe we no longer have the ability to change. When you think you can't learn something new, you stop learning. When you think you can't love anymore, you close your heart. When you think life will always be like this, you miss out on the wonderful things that could happen tomorrow. The truth is, people can change at any age. Our brains still have the capacity to learn, adapt, and grow. Even at 90, you can learn to play an instrument, learn to use technology, learn a new language, learn to meditate, learn to love yourself more, not for anyone else, but simply because you deserve to live an interesting life. I once witnessed Mrs. Margaret, 85 years old, starting to learn to paint for the first time in her life. She said, "I don't need to be good. I just need to feel like I'm alive." And she lived, brilliantly and full of color with every brushstroke. The belief that you can't is the greatest chain. It doesn't come from age. It's nurtured by fear, by the things others have said to you, by the fear of failure. But remember, failure isn't as scary as not daring to begin. If you still wake up in the morning, if you still see the sunlight by the window, if you still have some small desire in your heart, then you still have the ability to change and to live a life worth living. So, if you're still watching, comment, "I can still start." Write it as a commitment, so you know that it's never too late. And if you have a story about change after 70, share it in the comments. Maybe your story will give someone the strength they need to hear today. Change doesn't have to be grand. Sometimes it's simply choosing to walk instead of sitting still, choosing to call an old friend, or choosing to forgive yourself. Each of those small actions, when added together, will create a new life. And that life starts right here, right in this moment. You see, at 70 or 80, the burden we carry is no longer a suitcase. It's the sadness we haven't let go of, the regrets left unspoken. It's the old beliefs that have worn thin over the years. We hold on to too many things that no longer serve us, from unmet expectations to toxic relationships, from the fear of death to the belief that there's nothing left to hope for. But today, you have the right to choose to let go. Letting go is not surrender. Letting go is to lighten your heart. Letting go is to live. Live with peace, freedom, and depth. Not for anyone, not by any standard. Simply live true to yourself, whole, serene, and full of love. Don't ask how much time you have left. Ask, what will I do with the time I have left? Because the most precious thing isn't time. It's the quality of every moment you're still here. And if you're still listening, leave a comment below. I choose to live with ease and meaning. That's the gift you give to yourself, and a message for those who need to hear it. If this video touched your heart, if you want to continue on a journey of healthy, meaningful, and authentic living in your later years, hit the subscribe button for the Life in Words channel. Because here, we don't just share knowledge, we share the belief that old age is not the end, but the most beautiful chapter of life. Thank you for listening, and if you found this video helpful, share it with a friend. Who knows, you might be the one who gives them the change they need.